Benjamin Saulsberry is a native of Tallahatchie County, Mississippi, where he works at the Emmett Till Interpretive Center in Sumner, Mississippi, as the tour coordinator. Since 2017, he's talked to thousands of visitors from all over the world about the work of the Emmett Till Memorial Commission and their commitment to creating racial harmony in Sumner and surrounding areas. He's also served on panel discussions concerning race, racism, and racial reconciliation, as well as being the keynote speaker for various events.
Good morning or evening, depending on when you're listening to this. My name is Benjamin Saulsberry, and I'm a proud native of Tallahatchie County, which is in Mississippi. My actual residence is approximately 1 mile south of the town of Sumner, Mississippi, which may be famous or infamous, depending on who you ask, for the trial of J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant concerning the murder of Emmett Till. This trial took place in September of 1955. But what I want to talk to you today is around not just what took place in 55, but some of the things that have transpired as a direct result of this trial and my county and town's desire to begin addressing racism, and to do that by way of racial recognition. In 2005, Tallahatchie County began a process, a somewhat informal process, of dealing with and addressing racism. This early informal initiative was spearheaded by the late Jerome G. Little, for whom was a resident and served as one of our county supervisors, again in Tallahatchie County. It was his desire and that of other lay people, as well as some of our elected officials, to begin an honest and open conversation around race and racism and what racial reconciliation would look like in Tallahatchie County. Without a doubt, there was a mixed response concerning such a call. Right, you had some people that were in full and complete support of the reality that A, racism was real, and B, that we as citizens and as neighbors deserve and actually have the responsibility of addressing those things the best way we could. And so these, what seemed to be, or what began as somewhat informal conversations, comparable to town hall meetings, would later become a very formal process, which would give way to the creation of the Emmett Till Memorial Commission. Now, the Emmett Till Memorial Commission is a body of citizens from our county, both black and white, that first came together, again, officially in 2007. And they were charged with the responsibility of cultivating racial harmony for Tallahatchie County. Now, for those of you that may or may not know, Tallahatchie County is a very interesting county for a lot of different ways and for a lot of different reasons. And to have these citizens, right, these, let's just say, seasoned and mature citizens to come together and talk about something as race and racism for approximately a whole year was a really big deal in our community. But it was in that talk and in those series of talks and conversations, which was facilitated by the William Winters Institute, that we understood the importance and the necessity of our citizens and this particular cohort to continue figuring out the best ways possible to address racism and how to actually cultivate racial harmony. And in the conclusion of that phase of our addressing such a thing, there was one thing that was absolutely accepted, and that was the fact that we as a county and a community couldn't begin to talk about racism without acknowledging the miscarriage of justice that took place at the Tallahatchie County Courthouse in September of '55. Specifically speaking, a not guilty verdict was rendered regarding the murder of Emmett Till. And so for 50 plus years, our county and our community remained silent when it comes to, at least publicly speaking, when we talk about race and when we talk about racism. And although we were cordial and somewhat civil, the fact of the matter still remained that we had yet to make the conscious decision and effort to work towards racial healing until, again, the cultivation or the creation of the Emmett Till Memorial Commission. So I want to be clear that this wasn't just a bunch of folks getting together every week and yelling and screaming, right? That this was a process. One, again, that, as I stated earlier, was facilitated and assisted by the William Winters Institute, which is an organization headquartered in Mississippi that helps communities address traumatic events and incidents within a proximal location. And so our trauma, generally speaking, was racism, and specifically speaking, the miscarriage of justice concerning the murder of Emmett Till. And so what we realized was that we as a county and a community needed to publicly acknowledge the fact that we dropped the ball, and that's putting it mildly, but that we also need to be public in our resolution and desire to do better and to do differently going forward. And this wasn't an easy process because we're talking about people who, prior to this process, had no real reason or motivation to question their norms and to question their culture and to see how, even in such a small place, you have people sharing different worlds, and that it's of the utmost importance that we create spaces that allow people to hear the experiences of others and to do so for the purpose of making the world a little bit better. And so on the courtyard steps in September of 2007, our county officials shared a public apology to members of the Till family, two of whom being Willa Parker, Reverend Willa Parker, that is, and the late Simeon Wright. And they spoke on behalf of the Emmett Till family, saying that they accept our apology and that it was like being able to holding your breath for over 50 years and finally being able to exhale. But that's not where our story ends, because we realized that, yeah, an apology, to say the least, was of the utmost, was absolutely necessary, but we couldn't end there. That we had to look at other ways to speak life to the words we shared on the courtyard steps of 2007. And one of the ways we did that was to restore the courtroom, right? So the courtroom that I'm speaking of is the Tallahatchie County courtroom in Sumner. During the apology and during the early days of the Emmett Till Memorial Commission, this space had fallen into dilapidation. There was even rumors that it would no longer be in use because of fears that it was unsafe and dangerous for people to convene. But the Emmett Till Memorial Commission took it on itself to restore the space, and to do so, to have it be a community space, to allow it to be a space where not only can court convene once again, but to actually be a space where various programs and other community matters can be addressed, along with using that space to talk about race and racism and what racial reconciliation will look like going forward. And throughout the restoration of the courtroom and courthouse, the commission realized that it wasn't enough to even do that. That as good as it was to take a space that was symbolic and known for tragedy and horror and use it for something productive and good, that we also needed to be willing to take on this conversation on a regular basis. And in order to do that effectively, or at least we believe to do so effectively, the commission deemed it necessary to open an interpretive center and to hire staff that engage with people close and, that engage with people within our community and otherwise in this narrative. And by narrative, the narrative for which I'm speaking to is our own personal narrative on the journey of racial reconciliation, but then also just the realities that this isn't just a Mississippi issue, that our national climate, and even in some ways abroad, is one for which reconciliation is of the utmost importance. And so today, the Emmett Till Interpretive Center serves as an organization that, as I stated earlier, engages youth and others in this narrative. And by narrative, again, I mean the conversation concerning racial reconciliation and the steps we've taken up to this point. Now, I'd be in error if I told you that we have it all figured out, because we don't. We're still absolutely in the middle of doing the best we can to be not just stewards of the narrative, but to actually learn from our past mistakes and to even learn today. And we understand that one way for which we can engage community and others in this narrative is by conversation, but then also it's through social media and through a number of other ways for which we can partner with other organizations and others towards the goal of cultivating racial harmony in Tallahatchie County, but possibly in our state and maybe even on a national level. So in closing, racial reconciliation begins with telling the truth. And the truth is, as horrible and as hard as our history is, we're not without hope. And because of the hope that is still present, even in the midst of the social climate we find ourselves in, we're more than able to make a positive impact on our world, be it on a small or relatively small proximal level, or quite even possibly on a global scale. I want to encourage you to do the best you can to be aware of the world around you. And if there's any way that I can help you, please feel free to email me or contact me, Benjamin at emmett-till.org. Again, that is Benjamin at emmett-till.org. And on behalf of the Emmett Till Interpretive Center, and I'll even dare say, just as a fellow Mississippian, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to hear us out. Be well and be safe.